Welcome to New Game Plus. My name is Prospect, and this is my episode of the finale of New Game Plus. I'm, among many other things, the editor for New Game Plus, and I'm going to use this episode to show you part of the show that you may not have seen before. We're going to go behind the scenes and actually have a look at how the show's made and some of the stuff in the back end. I haven't scripted this like most things in New Game Plus. We're just going to dive in. Don't think of it as a step-by-step tutorial. It's just more of a tour as some of our processes and workflows and technologies that we use. So let's dive into it. So right here we have a typical episode of New Game Plus. This one is Jamie's Jamie's finale episode that aired a couple of weeks ago. And as you can see, we're using Premiere. We've used Premiere almost from the start. First 5 episodes were done in Final Cut Pro, but we quickly switched over to Premiere. I guess these 5 early episodes there as well. And as you can see here, the episode is in three distinct parts. We got part 1, part 2, and part 3. And this is all done because of C31, where we have a 25-minute show split into 3 segments, so with ad breaks in between. So we have a little gaps in between here, and we've got some titles to add to the bumpers there as well. So that's how we have to edit, and that's how we have to film as well in these 8-minute segments. So typically when we get an episode, I will get a bunch of footage from the studio where we film, and that comes in looking like this. This one's already been cut up a little bit, and you can see we got some information at the start about what the show is. We get lots of takes. And generally what I'll do is I'll scrub through this and find the good take. You can see bad take there.
We've got a great show for you. Shit.
Cut out lots of those essentially, and bring it down into a consistent piece. I believe this one. What's this? This is Jamie's intro. Here. Let's have a look into this old game segment. Here we go. So this is the segment that Jamie did, where the same sort of thing. When we take a clip, we find the good bit, and we cut it out and we put it on the timeline. Sometimes we can cut out little flubs in between stuff, which is good, but most of the time we just try to work around them. You can see here I've started adding stuff over the top as well. So this game in particular, where Jamie's talking about old games, he made a lot of references to software, to games, old games, new games. Well, actually, it's mostly old games, let's be honest. This segment is called Old Games. And we dumped it over the top. So generally for that, that's a good one. Excellent game, Final Fantasy. One of the best. Way to go. There it is. Beautiful. So typically game footage, best case scenario, we use the capture device. So our reviewers use the capture device to capture the game footage. Worst case scenario, when that doesn't happen, either the reviewers don't have time or access to the game because it's an old game like Chrono Trigger or something. What will happen is we'll just go onto YouTube and rip some clips. Try and find ones without watermarks, although a couple of times we've change the subject quickly. So what we do is we take these clips, and in this one you can see Jamie's provided a whole bunch for me. In this particular segment, he provided a script for me as well, which is excellent. Sometimes our reviewers provide scripts, but not often. It's a lot of pre-production, and we're all grown adults. We don't have a lot of time. Can't always do it. But when the effort goes in, it makes it really, really easy. And we can see we got all sorts of clips here, and we just find the best bit, and we dump it over the relevant bit of footage. And you can see old games like this that don't fill the whole screen. We use a little sneaky technique where we will actually, you can see that they are stacked up here. I've got a whole bunch of them in a row here, and they're stacked up. And the top row, let's just turn off that bottom row so we can't see it, is just the image. There we go, crop off all the black bits, and the bottom row is stretched to fill, and we've got a little blur, so that way we get this effect where we fill the whole frame, and we can actually put it in there without blowing up the footage too much. You blow up footage too much, it gets pixelated and yucky. Yeah, so generally with an episode, I'll do it segment by segment. I'll build up a segment like this, then I'll drop it into my main master sequence here. I'll drop in our intro sequence. Scrub through that real quick. And And I'll chuck on the little thing on the end for the ad break, and then I'll work on the next segment. Luckily, this one was just basically one that Jamie prepared earlier, so it's got a little intro there, and it's got the full clip. So rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. A couple of little things to jump on the end, and we have a couple of versions of those as well. Like we have that's the wrong tab. That's why. Duck under my camera. There we go. We have a bunch of pre-prepared graphics that I made earlier, including lower thirds, which we saw earlier. All with editable text, as well as our little slates for little slates for the end of the episode, complete with music, and as well another one's for YouTube, and such. Oops, sorry, very loud. Rip headphone users. And they're just all ready to go. So we just dump them in, render them out, and away we go. Now I am gonna end there for editing, but I'm going to switch over to our intro sequence because apart from the editing, I do all the graphic design and animation for New Game Plus. So I'll actually want to go through some of the After Effects stuff as well. So this is intro sequence version 3, as it happens to be, and there's some cool stuff going on here. And again, I want to actually deep dive into some of this stuff. I've only got a couple of minutes left before I hit that magic 8 minutes, but there's a few things I wanted to show how it's done. And again, it's not a step-by-step tutorial, just to sort of deep dive on some things that I think are interesting. The main one is this glitchy effect that I built in for all these effects. And it's one that I've recycled a lot for this particular intro. And I really like how it came out, and it was a really fun effect to build. So I'm just going to build a new composition here, just to sort of get my bearings here. So let's write some text, like so, and I'll just make it bigger and bolder. Where is my character? There it is. Let's go. Oops, maybe not that one. Back to this one. Actually, no, this is New Game Plus, so here's BBS New. I don't know why I didn't think of that to start with. We'll make it bigger. Alright, so essentially the way this thing is done, this effect is done, is by using what's called an adjustment layer. If you're familiar with After Effects, you know there's a whole bunch of different effects you can add to a layer, such as like a fill, which will fill it with color, in this case red. There's also adjustment layers, which allow us to add the same effects to the layer above, and it does the same thing, but it applies it to everything underneath. And what we can do here is we can actually mask the adjustment layer. So say the effect is only here, and it's only there, and it's only there, and it's only there. So essentially what I did with glitch effect is to use a transform, which allows me just to sort of move the text over a little bit, or maybe move it up a little bit as well. And then the same thing, I'm going to mask this. So that movement is only applied to this section, and only applied to that section, only applied to this section, only applied to that section. And that way I can create this sort of disconnected effect. And if we deep dive into this a little bit further, on this loading text here, it's got the same transform effect applied to it. That's an adjustment layer. So if I turn that off, it unglitches. I'll just zoom in a little bit. There we go. And instead of using a mask, I'm using what's called a track matte, which is it uses black and white information to show where to apply the effect and where not to. So that transform effect is going to be applied wherever there's white, and not applied wherever there's black. And then using a bunch of other filters like noise and such, I've animated this to be sort of moving around constantly. So that is defining where this glitch effect happens. Anyway, that took a little longer than I thought it would, so I'm going to leave that there. I hope you like that little sneak peek into the behind the scenes of New Game Plus. Hopefully it was enlightening and interesting. Stick around after the break, because I'm going to go over some of the stream overlays and OBS stuff we use as well. Hey all, in this video I wanted to give you an overview of what we can do in OBS to set up a stream. So I figured the best way to do that would be to go over the New Game Plus stream overlay we have set up for a bunch of our games. Now if you haven't used OBS before,
I've moved my layout around a little bit with all the stuff on the side when it's normally down the bottom, but it's generally pretty straightforward. The way I like to explain it best is actually comparing it to PowerPoint. What you really need to understand is the idea of scenes and sources. So think of scenes as your PowerPoint slides. You have a title slide, you'll have an introduction slide, you'll have a content slide, and so on and so forth. And then your sources is your content on the slide. So in the PowerPoint metaphor, that's your text box, that's your clip art, that's your videos, that's your images you're importing. Right? So you have specific scenes, specific layouts, specific setups, and then you have various content on those scenes and setups. So for this one, we're going to set up two. We're going to set up a let's do it now. So we have our first one is going to be our holding screen, right? And our second one is going to be our game screen. That's going to be the main one. Most of the stream is going to be on that game screen, and we'll start working there. The very first thing I'd like to do is actually just put a placeholder in there, just in case our game capture fails or something else fails. We've got a background that's not blank. So I'm going to dig up some of my New Game Plus graphics, and I'm just going to grab. I think we have a Purple Shades. There we go. I like that one. I'm just going to drag it straight in. All right. And let's just scale that to fit. There it is there, and I'm just going to hit the little lock icon as well, so I can't accidentally move it around. So now I've got a nice little background. I'm also going to name. I really love naming and organizing stuff, so let's just call this background Purple Shades. Yep. Easy peasy. Let's get in our game capture next. That's next most important. So in my sources, I'm going to click the Add button, and I'm going to choose Video Capture Device. It's going to ask me to essentially define a source, so I'm going to go ahead and name it here. I'm going to be using my Elgato Capture today, so it'll be Elgato HD 60, I think. 60. Hit OK. You can call this anything. It's literally just a label at this point. Hit OK. I get this. Now this is already pre-configured from when I was testing it before, but from the properties of this, I can choose my device, and I've got a bunch of different stuff in here at the moment, including my webcam or the game capture device. I'm just going to make sure I set the game capture device, and most everything else will line up automatically. If it doesn't, sometimes you do need to manually set the resolution, but I've found that 9 times out of 10, you can get by just choosing your game capture device and away you go. So I'm going to hit OK. That's in there. And you also notice here that under my audio mixer, I can see the levels for the game coming in as well, and I can adjust those and make them quieter or louder as necessary as well. So again, I don't want to be able to accidentally move this around when I'm editing stuff, so I'll just snap it back into there, and I'm going to hit the lock icon. So next I need some overlays, so I'm going to go plus, and add image. And I should point out, I've created a whole bunch of overlays here in Photoshop, where we've just got some text layers and some other bits and pieces, and what I've done is I've taken all of these and I've saved them out individually. So if I go back into my, where all this is saved, you can see I've got the bar down the bottom, I've got a little cut up for my window. I even saved a bunch of social media slides essentially for another scene. We'll get to that in a minute. But most importantly, you can see I've got all the different pieces cut out individually. I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty of how to build this stuff in Photoshop, although a lot of it is just using gradients and strokes. Makes a huge difference. I recommend it highly. Create this, give it a name. So it's going to be overlay lower bar. Hit OK. And I'm going to browse to that file location. Let's go New Game Plus, Stream Overlays. There it is there. And excellent. Now, because I've got I'm just going to wake my switch up so we get a bit brighter. There we go. Because I've made the image at the same size as my stream, it fits in nicely, but sometimes you do need to do a bit of maneuvering to get it into place. All right. And it's also worth mentioning that the order in which these things are stacked makes a difference as well. So if I move this below the game capture, then, well, it's below the game capture. I have to actually move the game out of the way to see it. So always keep an eye on the order of things here as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and lock that and lock that. Now you notice I've also got some text here as well, some generic placeholder text there. So let's add that in here as well. I'm going to lock this, going to create a new layer, text. Let's go text, lower text. Hit OK. And let's put in some text in the text box here. So let's go Prospect plays Bravely default 2. And I'm going to choose the font. I like to use Roboto. When in doubt, Roboto. Roboto is great. Nice and clean. I might actually change some of the settings here. Most of them I'm going to keep the same, but I do want to make this all caps, I think. Yeah, let's try that. So you can see my text is here. I'm just going to scale it down. Scale it down a lot. Once again, I'm going to go sources plus video capture device. And I'm going to call this one webcam. Create new. Okay. I'm going to change it to my webcam. So a C922 ProStream webcam. There it is there. And you can see it's on this weird thing where it's set up 4:3, which is not what I want. So and offsets this quite consistently. So here I'm going to make sure I go down to resolution, and I'm going to change it to a 16:9 resolution. Oops. Custom. I'm just going to go, it doesn't need to be massive. So just to make things a bit easier, I'm going to go 1280 by 720, which is about a quarter of HD. And that's that one there. Excellent. All right, let's just plonk it in the middle for now. Now, you would have seen, oops, in my Photoshop here, that I did have a frame set up, and this is movable as well. I found that different games wanted the webcam in different spots, so it was nice being able to have a webcam box that can sit at the bottom, or can be moved up into a corner, or the other corner, or the other corner, without any stress. So we'll set up that as well. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to go add image again, and this time I'm going to go BG for background, webcam, browse. And I've got this box for my webcam. So let's hit OK. And hit OK. And let's line these up. So my webcam's underneath, so let's just move those like so. And we go like this. And let's just line this up as best we can. All right, that's looking pretty good. So we can see our audio currently is picking up the game audio. Oops. And the webcam, but not the mic. I want this headset mic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another source. I'm going to add an audio input capture. And I'm going to call this headset mic. I'm going to find that headset mic. There it is there, headset microphone. It'll vary depending on what type of gaming headset you have, but mine's an Astro Mix amp. So let's go that. Hit OK. And now let's just work on this lowered resolution. There's my headset mic. You can see it picking up levels as I'm talking, and I can adjust these levels to balance the game and the game audio and my commentary audio however I want it to be. All right, so there we go. We've got game capture, we've got face capture, i.e. webcam, we've got audio. Let's go ahead and lock this. We've got audio from both sources. Essentially, this is the basics. This is all you need. So far this episode, I've taken you on a behind-the-scenes tour of New Game Plus from the editor's desk, but that's only half the story. Well, technically, it should only be a third of the story. Any good production has 3 parts, which is pre-production, planning, production, filming, and post-production, editing and delivery. So I've done editing and delivery. But New Game Plus has never really been a typical production. A few weeks ago, Liam and I regaled you with the stories of the humble beginnings of New Game Plus behind the scenes, and today I'm going to conclude that tale for you. When we left off, we were creating a weekly show, week by week, almost every week of the year. The production grindhouse was in full production. We were filming out of Jason's living room with prosumer camcorders, and despite our best efforts, the grind really was becoming a grind. We didn't overtly realize it at the time, but we really needed a refresh. Not only were our set, productions, and format becoming a little stale, our adult lives outside of the show were evolving.
And the resources we had in terms of time, availability, and energy were just becoming more and more scarce, and the show was really beginning to suffer for it. Enter the next chapter of New Game Plus, the RMIT Studios, or RMITV Studios. One of our contacts through the esports scene was at the time the content manager for RMITV, and suggested we should film from the studio. For those uninitiated, RMITV is a film and media club operated out of RMIT University with access to RMIT's state-of-the-art television studios. And I do mean state-of-the-art. Here's some pictures for a bit of context. But I do think I recall one of the studio techs telling us that it is among the better production studios in the Southern Hemisphere. So we're talking multiple studio spaces, multiple cameras, industry-grade hardware and lighting. There wasn't really a lot of things you could lean on that didn't cost as much as a small car. And all of a sudden, we had a whole new range of toys to play with. Apart from being refreshed by a whole new physical space, these studios opened up a whole range of options for us. Suddenly, Jason's long-awaited idea to film in a talk show style was a logistical reality. Multi-camera segments were now a breeze to edit thanks to insanely powerful live mixing panels. We no longer had to jerry-rig horrible solutions. We wanted to film more than 2 people on camera at the same time. Not only did things get a lot easier, but new types of content started to appear, and the show was much better for it. But that still wasn't the end of our RMITV-induced evolution. It was around this time that the weekly grind was truly reaching its limit. Time in our adult lives was becoming more scarce, and content was becoming invented on the spot in desperate efforts to fill the 25 minutes each week. The content was becoming slowly weaker as a result of this. So for the first time in NGP's already quite long history, we moved away from the week-on-week format and started working in seasons. 13 weeks off, on, 6 weeks off. This had a dramatic effect and introduced a whole new part of the NGP production process, pre-production. I shouldn't say introduced, we kind of already had it in spirit. In individual segments, the presenters utilised it quite a fair bit, such as Don and his news segments. But as a show, it was not really something we relied on. I mean, we couldn't. We were already at capacity just making the show happen. Keeping up with the constant planning for a constantly airing show would have been a losing battle, so we really didn't put a lot of effort into it. But 13 weeks at a time, with set filming dates and air dates, it was very possible. To this day, I still have a big old Google spreadsheet with weeks upon weeks of content planned out. This represented a true evolution for the show, as the amount of slapped together filler content saw a dramatic decline. And my role was able to evolve into something more akin to a showrunner, something that NGP never really had before that. That role swapped a few times between me and Jack, which was also a great way to share the load. But production-wise, we were running like a well-oiled machine at that point. This worked well enough that we moved on to what I would call the next big production milestone for New Game Plus, dual productions. It was around this time that one of our now alumni, Tom, who had been with us for a little while, was subtly pitching the idea of a sideshow, New Game Plus plays Dungeons & Dragons. I loved this idea personally and threw my weight behind it. But obviously it came with the detriment of essentially doubling our production. So we did. We started running 2 New Game Plus productions simultaneously. The main show in Studio A, and what later became NGP RPG in one of the smaller studios. We went from being in a place where the grind was wearing us down and fully tapping out our capacity to being able to run 2 productions at the same time. The fact that we were not only able to do that, but managed to pull it off successfully and with relative ease, it stands today as one of my proudest achievements at New Game Plus. And here we are, at the end of the journey. No, wait, this isn't MasterChef or The Voice. I really shouldn't use the word journey. End of the road? But whatever, it's not important. We are at the end though. The jump from well-oiled machine to let's wrap this up had a number of subtle steps, including COVID, let's be honest. Jason wrote an excellent post about it on our socials and the website in which he used the phrase Lost Boys, enough to be comparable to Screwflanders. And I suggest you read that if you want the full version. But the short version is that we'd be doing the same thing we'd be doing for 10 years. And even including the evolution, it isn't really what we wanted to do anymore with this endeavor. We'd rather put direct attention to the future ahead instead of endlessly replicating what we've been doing in the past, unlike Ubisoft. So there it is. That's the end of my episode and almost the end of the TV show that is New Game Plus. One more episode to go. I hope my insights to the behind-the-scenes process, both the technical and logistical, was interesting to you. It's been a privilege to work and play with this amazing team over the past decade. And please make sure to keep an eye out for whatever it is we come up with next.